agree that it's not really easy to understand in which position your companies are, right? Sometimes we don't have a lot of information, and sometimes we just need to create this hypothesis. But be careful because whenever we create this hypothesis, the idea is take the decision, take a little bit of risk, but reduce the risk as much as possible based on the information that you have. So I think it's a really good tool to understand how open your organization might be. Okay, if you are on the defensive phase whenever is not our problem to fix this, it's going to be really hard to implement a complex project there. Therefore, you should start like a little bit like a step by step, trying to move things forward, trying to empower the managers to have these tools in order for them to discover that they can have a competitive edge on this case. But that's a good point. That's a good point. Any other opinion on this?
Excuse me, sir, I have a question.
Yes.
Is it possible to have an issue between two stages, like for example, defensive and compliance, or do we have to map the issue only on one specific stage?
Very good question, Antoine. No, usually what happens in real life, it's not clear, this classification. Remember, I think Sadek did a great job about identifying these 5 different phases, right? And then I think he was very good move whenever he started to put the different slogans to each phase. But that doesn't mean that in real life are always going to be this way. So I would say 90% of the times that you do this type of exercise, you will see that you will fall in the middle, right? Because it's not exactly the Nike framework that will apply to all the companies. This was just an example whenever we have some similarities.
Okay, so we have to choose one specific stage.
I would say most of the times you're going to be on between the 2 of them, but it's like understanding if it's basically defensive, right? If we are trying to comply with something because the discussions with the activists has been there for a long time, or if we're trying to take advantage and try to start to think that on the long term, you also can gain some economic value as well with this.
Okay, thank you.
That makes sense, Antoine?
Yes.
Thank you. That was another good remark. Do you guys have other observations that you would like to share while this file starts to charge? Any problems that you have lived while you do this type of exercise? Yes.
May I ask? I have a questions on the is it necessary to have step by step to change from one stage to another? For example, for a matter of like the water and waste management, for example, it could be because we didn't see any legal requirements on the waste management normally. I don't know for some industry, is there any legal requirements on that? But normally it's just for the benefit of the company and for reductions of cost. So we can see it can be changed from the defensive, like to respond to the critical of the society, to the managerial stage is for the cost saving. So it's like the skip of the compliance stage then.
This doesn't happen immediately. It takes time, but the information that we have, we might have a lack of information what happens on the middle. So yes, these kind of things are normal, and these could be the possibility that we're lacking a little bit of information. Not necessarily a bad thing, right? It's just to understand where our organization are standing, how open they were, And therefore, what is the type of implementations that we can do to promote this change internally?
Okay, thank you.
Guys, any other questions or comments about the work that you have done so far? No, because then it will be another 3 uncomfortable minutes of silence. So,
just to be sure, I just want to ask, it could be possible that a firm never been defensive on a question in his history.
it's a very good question, Melisanda. Yes, it is possible. There are like enterprises, usually there are the small enterprises that they have this CSR and sustainability DNA inside. So since they are born, they want to promote this change and therefore try to make business out of it. They exist. I would say it's a small minority of enterprises that actually practice it, but yes, they do exist, and because basically they are born this way. In the case of an enterprise that we will see on session 9 that is called Green Batch. Green Batch is a small startup, an Australian startup, that what they do is like they take the bottles of plastic that they can find on the beaches and the ocean, they take it to schools, and thanks to a little machine, they start to do the plastic filaments for the 3D printers. And these 3D printers are used by pedagogical objectives inside of the schools. So did you see how, thanks to the waste, they set up a whole business for them to attack the environmental problem, but at the same time, they're making profits out of it. So yes, and this is what we're gonna see on session 9, that it's called social enterprises. I'm not saying that everything is good with them. I would say they are not very well known yet. It's kind of a new phenomenon. And sometimes the strategy might be really good. The problems with this enterprise will be more about, for example, how they deal with human resources. It's not really clear. As far as they're like small enterprises, sometimes they might be lacking a lot of systematic operations to make it work in a better way. But that's a good question, Melisanda. Any other questions or comments, guys, so far?
I have another question, please.
Yes, Antoine, I'd like your yes.
It's not concerning the tool specifically. It's about the text we had to read for yesterday. Where do we have to send you our summary?
Your summary, if you want to, I think either you can send it by mail or you can put it there.
Okay. So by Teams.
Yes, and okay. So I think there were like one people that put it on the chat, and that is fine. I'll get it. I prefer by mail, then I can put it all together, but it's entirely up to you, Antoine.
Okay.
What did you think about the lecture, Antoine? Did you like it?
I only read the first lecture, the text of Zazek, also talking about Nike's different stage to reach a broader sustainability strategy. And yes, I like the text.
I think he was also kind of provocative whenever he wrote it, right? He was like, "It's business is stupid" and all these things. I think it's an easy lecture. Key points. You have different examples. You have Royal Shell. You have Nescafe. You have so I think that's an interesting one. Okay, now why is taking that long to make this PowerPoint there? Because we're using a lot of videos today. Today we're gonna be specifically focused on one other enterprise that is called Unilever. I think most of you know it, or at least I'm sure. Okay, so it didn't work. Let me open it right now. I'm opening it's a heavy video because we have, it's a heavy file because we have a lot of videos today. And I think it's interesting because it was not only the project per se. I think it's going to be interesting because also the context didn't help at all. So, okay, guys, I'm sorry, but we are not going to. Let me see if you can see it. Can you see the screen?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay, hopefully the sound will work. If not, I will send to you by other means. So today we're gonna focus on the governance of the CSR. How can we just implement it, and how can we just assure that this thing is gonna work? Okay, you have created a project, then you started to see where your organization is, and then what is next? This is what we're gonna be about it. So again, your final objective about the 10th session is going to reinforce your project that you have done on part 1, and maybe tackle possible actions or that things can go against your project to develop it. So it's to reinforce the project that we already have created. Now, sometimes I think most of the times you want the liberty to think, right? You want to express how creative you could be, and you would like to think out of the box. This is completely fine with me. But sometimes whenever I give you so many instructions, I think this could be contradictory. So I would like you to feel supported, but I don't want to give you clear instructions. If you have questions, ask me and I can give you some suggestions. But there's not going to be any imposition because I would like you to do your own liberty and your own creativity, because you can be expressing yourself in different ways that I didn't think. So, and I think this is not necessarily fair for you. So I think you have a very interesting profile, you have very interesting experience, and therefore use it. And then be critical with the things that I said, be critical with the things that I'm showing you, and therefore this is the way that you're gonna make this project. Okay, so if you see that the instructions are not clear, it's because I think it goes sometimes against the liberty and the creativity that you can get. Second thing, I know that we like creativity, but we don't want to take the risk. I would like you to take the risk. I would like you to make assumptions and move on this, because a minimum of risk is necessary. Obviously, try to create reasonable hypotheses for you to move on these suppositions. But my invitation here is like, do not always take all the instructions as the only thing that you can do. Second thing, take a little bit of risk. Create your own reasonable hypothesis with this. Having that in mind, again, we're going to start to see how we can organize internally your project. Okay, and next class, we're going to see what kind of tools we can use, what other inspirations there are there, and that's it. We have finished the course. So we're getting into the last part of the course. And specifically, we have seen how good and how open your organization might have been with the subject that you have identified last course. And now we're going to move, this is the tool that you have used, and we're moving into how can we use this to implement our CSR program. Okay, and then how we're gonna do it by taking a case of Unilever. You will have much more details on the business case that I have put online. Okay, so you will have a lot of different details. You will see how it gets into, like, you get to know Paul Polman quite good. Okay, Paul Polman is the CEO of Unilever on 2009, and this is just a glance. Okay, so my invitation is to take a look of the case if you would like to know more, and let's see if you can hear. This is the presentation of the Unilever Sustainability Living Plan. Can you hear?
No, we can't.
No, sir.
No.
No.
Okay. They have identified, these are the 3 main goals. I'm very sorry because the other file didn't charge, and without sound it's going to be hard, but I need you to follow me, okay? They just they said, okay, we have three main issues that we need to tackle: climate change, sustainable agriculture, and water sanitation. This is like the civil part of it. Did you see? Now we get here, we're encouraging the other ones to do it. Sustainable agriculture. So they have a strong social goal as well, to work with local farmers that produce 70% of the food on the world. They don't do it alone. They do it with a lot of different alliances around there. And this is particularly interesting because water and sanitation, knowing that Unilever, they also sell this type of products in order for you to have a good hygiene. So that's the key base of the Unilever Sustainability Living Plan. So this was a very interesting plan, but wait, I think instead of consider just the program itself, we need to take a look at what happened in 2009. I don't know, you might have been very young for this, but I remember there was a huge crisis, right? And whenever we can see the Dow Jones Sustainability Index, they just dropped like huge, big time. So it was not only, it was thanks to the subprime crisis that other industries were affected. And then we were speaking of a financial world crisis. So it was not only that, I'm sorry that it's in Spanish, it's the only one that I found. This is the natality rate. And if the natality rate would have been the same that it was before the crisis, this would have been the rising index. After the crisis, our habits and our fear of this world changed that much that the natality rate, at least in the United States, whenever they lived it worse than other parts of the world, is just really decreased this way. So imagine how hard this was in order for you to think, am I want to get children in this world or not? And it was not like everyone has started to document this in different ways. So it was like really panic about this financial crisis and how can they impact our way of living. So let's say before 2009, Unilever performance declined 35%, the stock price on the market, 35% in just 1 year. So they were just going down. Again, you start to see how major competitors like Procter & Gamble started to gain more and more market share in developing countries. And then there's this market massive free fall. And then we didn't know when this financial crisis was going to end. So it was a very uncertain times. And then Unilever said, we need to change our strategy. And they appoint Paul Polman as the new CEO of Unilever in 2009. And what was the first thing that he said? Is like, Guys, okay, no worries. I'm gonna change things. This is the first CEO that didn't come from inside of Unilever. He was working on Procter & Gamble, and he said, okay, the first statement that he did whenever he took the first public declaration, he said, I'm gonna double the sales and reduce by half our environmental impact. And everyone like, what? And by the way, we will increase our social impact as well. So this is gonna be, imagine, and everyone was like, obviously one part of the public was very exciting for him to do all these type of statements, and the other side, the shareholders, like, wait, I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, so there was a lot of expectations about this, and we're gonna see this little video about what happens in 2009. I'm sure that you're not gonna hear the video. My apologies for this, because it's better with videos, but I've put the subtitles in case that it didn't work. Okay, and remember, this is Paul Polman who's speaking. Can you hear the sound?
No.
My apologies, guys.
No.
So
No.
try to find the subtitles. There's nothing I can do with this. This is very interesting. Did you see? One of the first things said, like, guys, we're gonna stop quarterly reporting. We're just gonna do it by the end of the year. This is a clear signal to the market. We don't want short-term shareholders to put pressure on us. We are looking for a long-term strategy. And this is creating a kind of sense of emergency. So I think that was interesting. Now, imagine that we have this tumultuous context, right? And then this guy decided, like, we're gonna have this sustainable strategy by, and not only that, we're gonna double our sales and we're gonna be more sustainable. And then it's like, obviously, it's a high risk. And this is the first version of what he presented as a Unilever sustainability plan. And specifically, they had 3 goals: improving health and well-being, reducing environmental impact, and enhancing living livelihoods. Okay, so and then there were 7 pillars: health and hygiene, nutrition, greenhouse, water, waste, sustainable sourcing, and better livelihoods. Did you see? This is very interesting because you have one slogan, then you have 3 goals, clear goals, and then you start to make them more practical into something that you can actually measure. That is a key point of success of these type of projects, because we can measure it, and therefore management, middle and bottom management, they have the tools to keep on moving with this strategy. Okay, and at the base is our people. Now, these 3 main original goals, which is improve health, reduce environment, and enhance livelihoods, are the base. Now, and they not only did these goals, we said like this could be very romantic. How we're gonna embed these goals into our business model? And that's whenever they present this living plan that will help to drive this growth. Okay, whenever we have the sustainable living, and they say, okay, if we do this sustainable living, we will increase our brand value in the market, and therefore we can afford to reduce cost. If we can afford to reduce cost, therefore we can start to invest in people's capabilities. And this was the core. After that, we can get a cost leverage and therefore be more efficient. We can invest on innovation and therefore as well in marketing. Well, let's not be naive. These things have to be communicated. And therefore, we will have achieved a certain volume whenever we will be more profitable than ever. So I think this single graph says a lot of things about the Unilever sustainability plan. Now, let's read about why was the main inspiration for him to have this type of responsibility of business. What was he thinking whenever he took this decision? Key point: if you don't make your people participate with you, they will go against you.
Professor, we did not hear any.
We cannot hear the
We
sound.
cannot hear.
Guys, I know. That's what I have the subtitles. So please try to catch up and put your Microsoft off and see the subtitles. There's nothing I can do. I'm sorry with this.
Normally, you have a button on the top of your screen.
Okay.
You can select it and you can add the sound. I send you a message to.
Okay, let's try. Why not? So which I have and then I don't see which one.
On the top normally, no?
Top I have participants, chat, reactions, and then I have 3 points. And then I don't have this.
I think there is another thing. You have to stop sharing and then you reshare. And when you select the screen you want to share us, at the bottom there is a button to select, and then I think you will. I think we will hear the sound.
Let's wait in clear. I have it, and whenever I click it, it doesn't move. That is a huge problem that I have.
Okay.
I'm very sorry. Let's try again. No, I'm very sorry. I don't have the bottom, guys. Let me try one more time. Because I see what you mean, but whenever I click, it doesn't allow me. Maybe by screen. I know. Okay, wait. I'm taking off my, let's see if it works.
Can you hear me here?
Yes, we
Okay.
do.
Yes.
Now,
Yes, we can.
I think it's gonna work. Let's see how it goes.
The contributor.
Does it work?
Yes, it's good.
To expect governments to solve all the issues that we have. Most of these issues have become of a global nature, very complex with the interdependency that we have created. And it's really difficult for our global governance process to solve these issues. So business, which is 60% of the global GDP, 80% of the financial flow, 90% of the job creation, has to play an active role. It cannot be a bystander in a system that gives it life in the first place. Our financial targets have taken dominance. Short term, they're always able to be achieved. You cut IT, information technology, you cut investments in people, you cut the quality of your products, and any CEO can sort of sit out his term and make the financial data work. But ultimately, it's going to catch up on you. And the goal should always be to build a stronger institution than you inherited it, in its values, in its people, and ideally also in its business, obviously. But that's really the third part of that. So if we were able to show the world that we could put out a business model that was delivering on its financials, at least for our shareholders as part of our stakeholder group, but also for the other stakeholders that we were dealing with, which is our employees, our communities, our partners that we work with in our value chain, and frankly, the most important ones are the citizens of this world that we're trying to serve with our products. It's a very funny world we live in where wealth might be more concentrated, but because of the information technology that has come out and the access to the internet and mobile phone, actually the power is dispersed. And transparency is the only tool you can have to drive your trust longer term.
Another key point, transparency. I think it's interesting if we can make the link between transparency and reputation. Have that in mind whenever he will speak later on.
We have seen many companies being voted out of office in nanoseconds. The last example being, again, the tragedy, may I say, of Volkswagen. But it's nearly every week now in the papers that you see that this behavior that actually undermines that trust that you're trying to build can be destroyed in a few seconds. Companies that manipulate LIBOR rates or buy from collapsing textile factories in Rana Plaza, or don't spend the maintenance money on the wells in the Gulf, or manipulate foreign currency exchange rates, or have slave labor in their value chain, they can lose, when that becomes public, they can lose 30 to 40% of their market cap. And the only thing we have really is our reputation. If you even look at Unilever, where our market cap is 120 billion euros, my asset values are 25 billion euros. The difference is reputation.
Did you see? It's very interesting how he started to link reputation with transparency. This is the difference between the market capitalization and the worth of his assets. So whenever you read the case, one of the most important things is, like he said, like, you never waste a crisis out. It's a good moment whenever you can set up things and rethink what was going wrong, not only with you, but on the system, and what is your role in society. So this is an excellent tool. Another thing is, like, if you don't include the people with you, they will go against. Eventually, whenever you're promoting change, people, even they say they like change, they don't like changes. Okay, we want to have our structure life that we know, and we want to be on the comfort zone. Most at work, we want to be as comfortable as possible. So if you don't include and invest in people, they will go against you. Transparency. Nowadays, with social media, with all the different applications that we have in our phones, transparency has become a huge issue. And this is strongly related with reputation. Okay, so there's a thing. I really like the word on English whenever it's like you deliver the change, because it's not just trigger the change, you just provoke the change. No, you deliver it. Deliver it like you put the change on the floor door of your house, right? You do everything that's possible to make it change. It's not like, here's my idea, and then after you do whatever you want. No, you make this idea to work. And the second part of it is like how Paul Polman started to put this Unilever Sustainability Living Plan in action. Okay, so this part is going to be specifically how Polman's delivered this change.
First of all, as I mentioned, we went back to the roots of this company to give people confidence of what made this company successful in the first place.
That was very important. He didn't want to make any disruptive strategy. He started because that was his fresh apport from the outside point of view. He said, like, wait, let's take a minute. What make this company great? Then he started to understand the soul division of Unilever, and therefore from that one it started to manipulate things. He didn't change anything on different ways. Okay.
First of all, as I mentioned, we went back to the roots of this company to give people confidence of what made this company successful in the first place. So there are a lot of elements that we could build on that we could also celebrate to give people the confidence, despite this shorter term performance which had not been up to par. The second thing we did was we spent an enormous amount of time, about a year, that's why we waited, to do first of all the measurements in our total value chain.
They started to understand what were their main impact. First, you might have a glance, but whenever you have measurements, this is whenever it could be managed, right? You can set up realistic goals without just saying, we're gonna decouple by the half. The measurements were there, and therefore the goals can be set up in an easier way.
So we knew what we were talking about. I think we are still one of the few companies that for each of its brands can measure its impact on carbon, on packaging, on waste, on water. Then the third thing we did was to make, first of all, clear that we had the commitment from the top. If the commitment from the top isn't there, what happens with many of the CSR efforts, which a lot of people will say it's greenwashing or it's, whatever words you want to put on it. So we spent a fair amount of time on working on the commitments on the top and the commitments from my board. After that, we spent.
Did you see the commitments from the top are very important whenever you have these strategic changements. If you're looking for maybe more vacation time, maybe better compensation, it's good that it comes from the bottom to the top. But whenever you are trying to drive this strategic sustainability change, it has to come from the top. And not only the commitment, but the communication as well. Communication is very important to trigger that change.
A year getting ready internally. We not only put the measurement systems in place, we not only did a lot of communication, we not only spent a lot of time on training people in terms of our brand development programs, our innovation programs, but we made people feel comfortable. The driver for the Unilever Sustainable Living Plan were actually three drivers. The first driver was the need to have a different and better strategy to grow this business. Purely financial, left brain, economical. You might call it the old world of Milton Friedman if you want to. The second driver of the Unilever Sustainable Living Plan was a firm belief that the values that this company was built on, to have companies make a positive contribution to society. And the third reason why we felt comfortable about the Unilever Sustainable Living Plan is because every company of our size and magnitude for sure has a challenge to avoid the company becoming internally focused, navel gazing. So change the people, invest in the people, set the tone from the top, measure and be very clear there, have a model that is humble by saying you can't do it alone, you don't have all the answers, invite other people in, and then invest in a lot of money in terms of building the capabilities.
That was, if I would like you to remind something about this session, is what you just said, the three things. Okay, so how he did it, going to the roots, what makes this company successful in the first place. We're not trying to convert one company to another one from one day to another. We need to respect why are they, why they have been accepted by the people. Second thing, do all the proper measurements. I know that this sounds very trivial, but it's not. Whenever you do the proper measurements, you have a better overview about what is happening. And not only that, you can set up realistic goals. And therefore, you can have a good project management by saying you have to do this, and by this year, you need to achieve this. If you don't get all these measurements done, the rest is going to be really hard to say, and it will be probably just a purely discourse change type of management. The commitment from the top. If they say, yeah, that's another initiative like the millions that we have seen every day, this is not going to work. It has to come from the top, and not only the commitment, communications. You need to communicate from the top as well if you want to make this radical change from one day to another. And they invest and build the capacities. I think one of the greatest things that I celebrate to this program is like they were humble enough to say, no, you know, we cannot do it alone. So in this moment, the activists that they were criticizing Unilever operations, they were like, okay, you're criticizing me, come with me and let's find solutions together. And there, I'm going to show you that it's not easy. And second, I'm going to learn from your competitive advantage that you understand this issue maybe better than me. Whenever they started to invite all these NGOs, specialists, activists, they started to create something really interesting. Obviously, they were investing a lot of money on building these capacities. But at the beginning, you do it externally, you learn how they do it, and then this becomes a part of your intangible resources inside of your corporation. This is a key slide on the presentation. Do you have any questions you would like to react to this? Okay. Now, this is a key point. After this video, it has been done 5-6 years after they started to launch this program. And I would like to give you this practical point of view whenever you drive all this implementation plan in a very radical way. Not everything goes fine, but that's a good thing because you will discover more. And this is the type of learning lessons after 5 years of implementing the Unilever Sustainability Plan.
You know, after a 5-6 years change program, you're coming to a crossroad a little bit. But we are at a crucial point because there are undoubtedly some things for us that went better than we had thought, and there are some things that are proving to be more challenging. Changing consumers, changing the regulatory environment, getting the industry to change, because some of these things we can do alone, which I call the low-hanging fruits, which I've called out 5 years ago as well. But I was also very well aware, and I am well aware that as we get closer to these 10 years, that these ultimate years will become disproportionately more difficult. What is very clear now to people is that the Unilever Sustainable Living Plan is a philosophy of how you do business. And the society actually accepts us to have these targets be fluid, not to run away from things that are important. That is not what I'm saying. It is to be fluid on the targets. We are always talking about the debate between the shareholder and the other stakeholders. It's not true at all. The debate is not about shareholders and other stakeholders. The debate is between short-term shareholders, who cause a lot of the challenges that society is facing, and the longer-term shareholders, who increasingly are starting to realize why models that we're trying to put out there are the only ones that are long-term, the most desirable models for prosperity for all. Because of this strong sense of purpose, people have a fear that by financial underperformance, still the dominant critic from the outside will condemn the model that we're putting out there and forcing us into change, which would be a big tragedy for society. We feel so strongly about that, that it puts an enormous onus on us to perform. And as you then see, our model of consistent top and bottom line performance has now played out for 7 years. I hope we can do that for many more years. And it's that consistency in an increasingly volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous world that we live in, that undoubtedly increasingly will be valued also by our shareholder base. Some people are saying, well, if you do this, you should be putting this into your compensation system. And by doing so...
What do you think? Shall we pay people to make this change? What is your opinion on this? Or can we just make it for free? What is, I would like to hear your opinion before we keep going with the Paul Polman's statements. Do we need to pay people for them to move on the sustainability goals or not? Yes.
Yes.
I think it's a bit. Sorry. Yeah, it's a bit tricky to say because we never know to who we are talking, and of course there is people who will be committed directly because they understand it and for them it makes sense. But for other people who doesn't have the information about like sustainability and all of that, then you definitely need to pay them, because if you want it to move on, there is people who need to be paid, I think.
But it wouldn't be. Thanks, Eleanor. I think that's a good point, but wouldn't be fair for the ones that understand a little bit sustainability and say like, okay, you're not gonna get paid because you understand, and the other ones they will.
No, but definitely then you have to pay everybody. But
yeah, exactly. If you pay one, you have to pay for everyone.
Yeah.
Any other opinion on this? Okay, I can see that it was okay. Let's see what he did.
People would be more motivated to work on it. We've not actually seen that. We've seen the motivation come from the purpose that we're putting out there in the first place, in the people we attract, in the engagement scores in the company. So I've always said, why should we compensate people for doing the right thing? What we are doing gets it ingrained in the culture. It might take you a year or two longer under American monetary systems where people are more driven by their rewards perhaps, but it gets it ingrained in the culture and the values of this company. And that is my prime objective in everything I do, is to be sure that it doesn't depend on an individual. Now that it is there, it's part of our operations, it's in the DNA of this company. The insurance I took was by saying very simply and very humblingly, we cannot do it alone. We cannot do it alone, this target. We are frightened by it ourselves. And we need to work in partnership. So the simple facts that when we launched the Unilever Sustainable Living Plan, that we said we don't have all the answers and we cannot do it alone, made it human. So when people wanted or started to criticize us, which they might have, we would simply say, why don't you join us? So the first thing we've done is we have broadened our Unilever Sustainable Living Plan by moving it from a Unilever alone to much more transformational. I spend a lot more time working with the industry now, or with governments. The climate change negotiations, that the COP21 in Paris is a good example of that. The efforts on the industry to get out of deforestation, the broader efforts to tackle the issues of food waste, the issues in Africa to scale up nutrition. So we are broadening our impact, if you want to, by looking at these bigger transformational things. The areas we step up on.
This is specifically, again, it's kind of reinforcing if we want to make the link with SADC last session. This is like now they're like in the civil stage. We're looking at the bigger picture. We're asking the other ones to join us on this. This is whenever you affirm your leadership position regarding these decisions in the market.
Once more is significantly strengthening our partnerships with people like USAID, DFID, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, UNICEF, Save the Children and others, to accelerate some of the projects that we otherwise cannot afford ourselves. We've significantly stepped up the efforts that are happening at industry efforts. You can see the whole issue of climate change, how many companies are actually pushing the agenda forward now. And then obviously in our own shop, we are looking at some of our portfolio choices, some of our brands that we have, to also see if we can lift up the role that they can play and make that an increasingly important part in the strategy of what this company should be moving forward.
Well, those are the key lessons. I think it's interesting to first to understand that not everything went well, right? That we had a lot of things to learn, and this is fine. Understanding where and making more efforts, and understanding why the things that actually work fine, why they work fine, because giving us more information how we can advance with this implementation of the project. Second thing, new challenge were discovered by doing this. And this is I think is one of the most important lessons, because you might have set up some goals, but then after you found that you are facing better or much more important challenges. You need to tackle them. It's a challenge because here you are trying to not get rid of, but at least give signals that we are not interested to work with short-term shareholders, but we're moving into what we call long-term stakeholders, which also include the shareholders. Okay, and compensation system. As we said, as he said, like why paying more for people to do the right thing? I think it's interesting how he argues that if it's embedded in the culture of the company, if it's embedded on the mission of the company, you shouldn't. Nevertheless, Flammer 2019, that it's in the complementary readings on Canvas, she's arguing in wait, this is the first time that we're going to do an empirical challenge, and therefore she found statistically evidence that proves that whenever there's a compensation on the CSR direction team, you will have higher benefits. And nonetheless, whenever higher these benefits are, your impacts are going to be higher. So we have two options here. Either you pay or not. Obviously, as managers, as finance directors, we're going to say, maybe not. Remember, we're going to leave this point in, like to discuss later on, but I think we have evidence from both. I think a good combination is like it's embedded on the culture, but at the same time, whenever you're pledging a transformational issue, you should pay for this. Okay, maybe not the year, not every time, but at least at the transformational state, you should say like we're going to get a specific bonus this year if you achieve these non-financial goals. And this is a good way, a good compromise to move over and just to make your people understand that they are facing challenges as well. And there might be needed to do more efforts on this. And therefore, you should be rewarding this extra time effort as well, give them the purpose with it. And what I really like about this is like they made it human. Like, guys, we cannot do it alone. Help us. They put money on this. It's not just make it like they were trying to get knowledge out there. But I think the slogan is very powerful. Like say, like we cannot do it alone. We need your help. And they were learning really fast on this. Again, I think the key point of this, they discover new challenge on the process, and they might be more important than the ones that you taught at the beginning. Can you hear the sound?
No. Not at all.
Okay, let's see if this is a short one. Let's see if it works. Just with the subtitles this time, okay? Did you see? The first one, it was deforestation. And now I say, wait, whenever we measure this, there's another challenge which might be bigger. And then from deforestation, they were trying to attack climate change. The beginning, I don't remember which one it was, but it was, I think it was livelihood farmers. And then it's like, okay, now we need to go with something, food security for everyone. That remains the same. I know that I don't work for Unilever. I don't have any shares in Unilever. I just think it's a good example that we can criticize and we should criticize. I think it's interesting as well how they have not only how they have changed the goals for new ones that might be bigger, from deforestation to climate change, but also they have pointed out 3 key drivers. And that whenever we embrace sustainability, this will enhance our brand growth. Okay, we will start managing costs in a better way, and this will reduce the risk on the future. So these are the 3 key drivers that they use in order to make this work, and that's why they were working. Now, they found new challenges: climate change, food security, water, sanitation, and hygiene. Obviously, this is very interesting because they try to make it simple, right? But water and hygiene, they're not always go with the hand, but as far they sell soap as well, it kind of makes a lot of sense. So what do you think? I know that you are not very participating, so I'm just going to skip this one. I think it was a good example that we can criticize. But wait, I think this is great. The sustainability living plan, how we have the goals, how then we have the 7 pillars, how was the context to understand how he took the decision. But we have been mostly speaking what happens with this from the top to the bottom, right? We have seen these basically on the eyes of Paul Polmans, and this is great. I think one big issue that was missing on this, it was a proper vision with the stakeholders. And usually I would have say, let's work a little bit with the stakeholders. You remember the stakeholders, any individual or group that affect or can be affected by the organization's activities, that's a stakeholder. And we haven't heard them all. This plan looks great whenever you want to impose your vision on it. But wait, what happens with the other ones? Do they have a thing to say? Do Unilever own the suppliers or the customers? No. So I would say, honestly, I know that you might be very busy, but on my classes, what I'd like to do is to play a little role. So I usually divide the class into 5 different stakeholders. I'll give you time to discuss and therefore to reinforce what could be the main concerns about this specific group. Let's try to make this effort just randomly. We're not going to do groups. But this is a great experience. It's a shame that we are not very participating because this could have been. Anyway, I'm gonna ask in general terms. So what do you think the Unilever sustainability strategy looked from your perspective in 2010? Okay, so you have a little bit of the context. Crisis, everything goes fine. We're very reticent. And we will have not 4, but 5. I would like to hear the opinion if you were a shareholder, right? You just care about the money, basically. If you are a customer of Unilever, if you are a union or an employee representative, if you will be a supplier, or if there will be some NGOs or activists here. Okay, so how this sustainability living plan will affect your activity as a group of different stakeholders. So imagine we are the shareholders. What is the type of things that you will think whenever you get into this administration council, like the general meeting, and then Paul Pullman presents this in the middle of a crisis? What is the first thing that what is your reaction as a shareholder of Unilever?
For the shareholders, maybe the risk is to lose money and not earn as money as they earned before.
Thank you very much, Eloise. Yes, that is our concern as a shareholder, right? Wait, stop this idealistic hippie mindset, right? And focus on competitive, implement-based strategies to make us out of this crisis, right? This is, imagine, so this is the type of pressure that Paul Pullman was living when he was like, no, this is not going to happen. And what he did is like, oh yes, we're going to stop reporting quarterly. You will get the results by the end of the year. So I don't care about your short terms. We're just going to move on the medium and long term. Good point. Thank you, Eloise. Now, imagine you as a customer. You are kind of a customer of Unilever. I don't know if you consume their brands. Imagine that you hear this Unilever Sustainability Living Plan. What will be your concern as a client?
I think that customer are scared by the increasing of the price, maybe.
About the what, Eleanor? Sorry.
The increasing of the prices.
That's a good point. That is the main concern. Customers will say, "Wait, we love it, but prices they can change. We want to pay exactly the same thing, right?" And the second thing is like, it might be true, but wait, I want more information. But wait, no. I don't want more information. I just want to take my decisions easier. And that's the point of view of the consumer. We want more information, but we don't want whole information. We just want to have the information available, right? Because we don't want to make our decisions harder than they are. So we want information, we want it now, we want a lot, but we don't want to read it. That is the point of customers. And they're gonna be happy if prices stay the same and if they can get the same products that they have. Be careful because, and we don't want to change our habitudes. What do I mean with this? Unilever at a given moment started to put this solid shampoo on the market. And it was great quality. It was zero packaging. It was zero plastic because it had just a little bit of paper around. And guess what? Customers didn't use it. Why? Because they were not getting used to that. They thought it was going to be not as hygienic as the other ones that they were consuming, even it was the same brand. So customer behaviors are really hard to change. You really get to get a good communication. You might have a great project. You might have a great implementation project. And whenever you get to the final consumer, they're going to say, oh, guess what? I want it, but no, I don't want it anymore. And they just change and like, why? So they want the same prices. They want the same type of quantity. They want more information. They're not going to read the information. And if you propose something radical whenever they need to change your habits, they're not going to do it. Okay, so you need a lot of communication on this. Okay, now let's go to employees. You are manager at Unilever. What is your main concern regarding this new sustainability plan? What is the thing that are going to be worrying you at night?
I think that I'm concerned about how to make the plan success in terms of both reputation and sales.
What do you mean with this?
So I'm concerned about how to make the plan success in the sales or the sales of the product as well as how to make it become popular, branding for the branding of the project.
Good point. Good point. What other points are around there about what is your concern as an employee of Unilever?
Sorry.
Sorry.
You can talk. You can talk. Sorry.
Okay. So my concern is there any changes in the procedures? Do I have to do anything more? And does it or does it affect my work because of the new technology?
Exactly. What are the new things that I need to learn? No? That's a good thing. Thank you. Colleen, you wanted to add something?
Yes, I think like as the customers, employees also have like habits in the habits in the work, in the daily life. Like they used to make the same thing each time for the most of employees. And I think if the manager want to change the strategy, or the top management want to change the strategy, they also have to change their habits, and it could also have an impact on the performance. I think it could like have an impact also on the wellness on the company.
Completely, I agree with you. We have habits, and sometimes we are completely irrational because we want change, but whenever the change is there, we don't want it. That's why it says like, if you don't make people go with you, they will go against you. So if you don't feel that you're part of the change, that is your ideas that the ones are counting, this is not going to work. Good point, Colleen. Thank you. Any other concerns? Yes.
I think in this context, financial crisis, there are two main concerns for employees. The first is the work, as others said. Is their work is increased, or do they need to do more overtime or more responsibilities? And the second concerns may relating to salaries. Do they receive the same salaries, or do they need to decrease your salary to reduce the cost and the strategies of the CEO?
Completely, and this is not really clear. That's a very good point. Eloise, and then Ronan.
Yeah, I wanted also to talk about the salary, so it's the same thing.
Good point. Salaries is not clear, right? How am I gonna be measured, right? Like, if I need to do more things, are you gonna pay me more for this or not? Ronan.
Yeah, it's not directly linked to the question, but I just want to add and to ask, there are not only concerns about such a sustainability policy, because I think that there is also for the employees this sense of belonging to an organization with some values, and which standing to be recognized for these changements. So I don't know if we will talk about it later, but this is important, I think.
Completely. No, I agree with you, Ronan, and this might give you the sense of purpose. And as you will see, I don't know if we will have the time, but salary is getting less important than getting a right purpose of you at work. At the beginning, whenever we start to speak about this, whenever you wanted to choose a company to work for, you were just looking at the salary. But nowadays, as we move on, this is getting less important, and looking for a right purpose for you to find a good company is getting more and more important. So yes, of course it is. I think what I wanted to direct this conversation is to understand what could go wrong in order for us to avoid it during the implementation plan of it. But I agree with you. There's a lot of interesting things and positive things that this change will bring.
Okay, thanks.
Any other points of view as an employees? What will be your concerns with this Unilever sustainability plan?
Yeah. Maybe the employee will be offered to have maybe more constraints, more regulation in their work. For example, to develop a product, they will be aware about to be careful about what ingredient to put in the product or something like that.
Completely. and then the innovations are going to be more restricted, right? Before you have like more liberty to propose whatever you wanted and say like, no, now it has to be sustainable. Knowing that some studies can prove that the most limitations you have on innovations, the better these innovations are. But whenever you have a liberty, you're kind of restricted. But whenever they give you less liberty, then you find the ways to do the other innovations. But good point. Guys, in general, I think the employee part is quite concerned how this will affect my jobs, right? How am I going to be evaluated by the end of the year if I do it or not? Because you hired me for one thing and now you're asking me another ones. So sometimes you are going to get me imagine I work in procurement on sourcing, right? And now you're going to tell me that I need to buy sustainable goods. Okay, I understand. But also you are asking me to buy the less expensive products on the market. This time could be conflicting, and therefore this can have a lot of confusion. So it has a lot of confusion inside of the employees, and therefore I think a compensation might be needed at least during the transition time. How are they going to make, are you guys going to pay me extra? How the sustainability plan will distract us from the efforts, because we need to remember that we're in the middle of a financial crisis. Obviously, as Ronan has pointed out, like these could bring also positive things. Now, that was for employees. Very interesting. Suppliers. This is just to mention some of them, but like suppliers, they will complain about, wait, nobody has asked us for our opinion. And we do the job for Unilever. Unilever commercialize things, but we are the ones who do the shampoos, who do the deodorants, who do the soups, right? So why they should impose our vision on us? This is kind of like, what do you think they are? Obviously, these sustainability goals will increase our cost of production. And I didn't see on this plan that Unilever are guarantee us to pay us for this extra work that we'll produce, because we already have a very optimum way of working. With these changes, this affects everything. So you're putting a lot of pressure on me. There's high expectations on me. What are you going to give me in exchange of this? What other arguments my suppliers have on this behalf with the Unilever Sustainability Living Plan? Guys? No? Yes?
I want to add one comment on the concern for suppliers. I think not every suppliers of Unilever will agree with Unilever sustainability plans, as they may contradict to their visions and they may not want to produce the product in a more sustainable ways. It's not only the concern about cost, but it may be the issue relating to labor or anything else. So maybe Unilever will lose some main suppliers, or supplier will have, I think, in a bad relationship with Unilever after hearing this plan.
Completely. I completely follow your thoughts, Who. I think it's not the real traceability, how many suppliers they have lost on this. I completely agree with you. At the same time, there might be other suppliers that would say, hey, wait, now, thanks to the vision on Unilever, we can work with them as well. So they started to compete also for other type of contracts, right? So I could see your point, but I could see also, it's hard for me to tell you because we don't have the proofs, right? But I'm sure that other suppliers could say, oh, and if there's no suppliers in this, that means that we have a market whenever we can create something new that doesn't exist that might fit with what Unilever needs. And therefore I can create a new enterprise. Why not, right? Any other arguments that you can come up with as a supplier?
Actually, I consider about when Unilever have a change. Maybe the supplier have the change after that, and the supplier can have the question that after the supplier invest money to change, and Unilever, they are not consistent.
Good point. Good.
Yeah. So after the supplier invest money to change, the Unilever change again, and they can the supplier can lose the investment.
Good point. And I think I haven't heard this about Unilever, but I know, for example, Michelin, that they're investing as well with their suppliers whenever there's this type of change. They have a specifically allocate a budget for the suppliers to go with them. And sometimes it's not on the form on just giving money and then you pay me back with your products. Sometimes they invest on their suppliers to grow with them. So it's interesting. Good point. Guys, let's do NGOs and then let's take a break. What do you think NGOs will think about whenever they have seen the sustainability living plan?
I think for the NGOs, they were scared that it was just a communication plan, but like mostly for communication and for marketing, like to make their reputation good. But at the end, like their promise, like for example, when they talk about climate change, it's good, but we need to see what they will do because actually they are using a lot of plastic and stuff like that. So I guess it's about that.
That's exactly what it was going to be my point, Eleanor. So they're like, yes, another blah, 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 great expectations, great. Dear guys, thank you for the canapes that you offered me here on this presentation, but guess what? I don't believe a thing. This is another cool greenwashing announcement that is not going to work. So did you see? I think it was interesting to see all the different perspectives to see, okay, we have a good plan, but they were not necessarily addressing the stakeholders. And nevertheless it worked. Can we take 15 minutes break? I'll see you here at 05 and then we resume with the rest of the class, please.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. See you in 15 minutes.
Thank you.
Hello, are you guys there?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So
Yes.
Yes, you wanted to say something? Okay, so I will resume, okay?
Yes, sir.
Now, I think it's interesting for us to discuss about, very briefly, about how Pullman was able to overcome all these obstacles and implement such a transformational radical change. One of the links, I don't know if you have had the time, have you ever heard about Coder Model 8 Steps? Any of you? Ronan?
Yeah, in the readings of today, I think there was the culture model.
Exactly, there was like this little link.
The idea of the change in the company with the sustainability in order to improve the productivity.
It was not necessarily to productivity, but how do you deliver this change? Yes, good point. So my intention is not going to go over all the Coders model. It's just to show you how they might have some similarities that might have helped to understand how this change was implemented. Okay, so I don't want you to lose focus. Today's objective, that means the thing that you're gonna do with your groups, is to create the vision for your project. Now you have a kind of a project, you know where your organization is standing. Therefore, now a little bit not like I just want to get inspired by this Unilever Sustainability Living Plan, but it's to clear and to create the vision for your project and therefore to communicate it. And therefore, did you see we're advancing on this? So I'm just gonna go 5 to 10 minutes to try to link Cotter's model with Paul Pullman's strategy. In general, for the ones that hasn't done the lecture, Cotter change, it starts with the sense of urgency. You need to start to spread the word that the thing that you are doing is not longer going to stay for a long time on the market. Now, after this happens, at the same time, you start to build a solid team, right? You cannot do it alone. You need people who are specialists who are going to help you with this. Then you developed a clear and shared vision. And this is what I would like you to create today. Try to develop this vision, right? After you communicate this vision, and then you start to empower action. Okay, guys, this is your goals, right? But this is going to be the reward that you have it, and we're going to celebrate it all together. So this is empowering action. You say, okay, we're going to create on hold these things, this amazing, but this is going to be a step by step what you need to do, and we're going to celebrate it. Again, we consolidate this improvement, right? We're going to do public announcements. We're going to make the employee sustainable of the month. And at the end, we are going to embed this change in cultures. Okay, I'm not saying that all the changes happens and they accomplish these 8 steps. I'm just saying I think it's a good reference for you to have in mind what is going to come next and what is the thing that you need to start with. Specifically in the case of Unilever, how Pullman was creating this sense of urgency. He's like, first, never waste a crisis out, and we're gonna freeze salaries, right? There's not gonna be any travel expenses, and I'm going to change 30% of the top management at Unilever. I'm gonna say the markets, I'm not gonna report quarterly. Okay, so we're gonna stop with this guidance quarterly. We're gonna just do it by the end of the year. So this is like we create a sense of urgency that changes are happening. Now, recruit the right people. Whenever you read the case, you will see that they start to create a powerful coalition to drive this implementation. Specifically, whenever he said, "Okay, you keep with, you are gonna get new position whenever we combine marketing, communications, and sustainability." So it was one of the top managers of Unilever and said like, now you have these three together and I'm creating kind of a new position for you to have the power and then help me to make things work. And then I'm gonna make you the Unilever leading expert on sustainability. Okay, so and then you start to make your own team. So from the top, I started to assign people to be part of this powerful team. Now, this is the first hint that I need you to have on mind for your second assignment. They create a vision together. And the vision, it was not only to reinforce the strategies that already exist, but to improve the existing one and on what Unilever was successful at the beginning. They didn't create anything new. They just reinforced this image to try to engage the other stakeholders. The second one, they start to align all the strategies developed by these Unilever leading experts team. And this is whenever they start to communicate the vision. I would like you to work in something obviously not the same because you need to apply it for your own company. But the first thing is like, it was the slogan, it was really good. Doing well by doing good. The second one is like, here it's really clear what you want to do. This is your main goal. We want to create positive social impact. We want to double the business and we want to reduce our footprint. Did you see? It's very interesting because positive, you want to create more. You want to keep on growing with the business at the same time that you would like to reduce the environmental print. So this is clear. Our vision is to double the size of business while reducing environmental footprint and increasing positive impact. And Unilever sustainability plan has, we want to improve health and we have a specific goal. We want to reduce the environmental impact and then we have a specific goal and we would like to have a positive impact. Why? Enhancing livelihoods for millions. And here you have a specific things. So I think this could have been, it could be inspiring for you to set out the clear vision of your project. Okay, I'm not gonna give you any clear instructions on this. Do as much as you want. Do as much as your motivation, your interest, your skills might lead you to go. I don't want to stop you on this. This is just a good reference, but you can overpass it by far, or you can just stay in something very simple but clear about what is the mission of your project. How you create, this is another interesting because in this one, you are embedding the sustainable living into the business model. And I think this is very powerful because you're giving like this kind of sense to the employees, to suppliers. What is the thing that you would like to do? We start with the sustainability living, right? The core purpose. And then you start to put the key inputs, our brands, our operations, our people. And how do you embed these into driving profits? So I think this image obviously is going to be hard to replicate it, but if you can do it, that would be amazing. Go and embed this vision into the business model. And this is one of the examples. Now, again, whenever they start to communicate the vision, it was like thanks to endless meetings, discussions, interviews, forums, YouTube videos, right? And the vision was translated into clear graphics. And I think that was one of the successful factors. They translate all these complicated things into easy graphs, right? To illustrate those objectives and how these objectives were matching the business model of Unilever. Obviously, you can see these images in all the annual reports. In Power Reaction, what did they do? They start to removing the blockers, the one that they were like reluctant to change, and they start to promote the champions of it. That was the case of the Kidwith and Cleanworth. And another clear point is like, we're going to eliminate the CSR office of all our brands. This is not going to be independently, right? And this is a strong signal that this living plan is going to be embedded in the core strategies. So it's no longer by brand. It's our corporate strategy who's going to take care of this. And it's not going to be taken as a corporate program because it's like the leading expert. So it's like the CEO and the leading expert. And then they start to, thanks to these Unilever leading experts, they start to align all the different level business, right? By geographic, functional managers to this sustainability plan. And again, the commitment was strong and was always from the top. And not always the commitment, but as well the communication of this commitment, which is very important. It was always from the top. They started to create short-term wins and they start to celebrate, right? And it was not only highlighted on the annual report, but there were like specific meetings that they were done by brands whenever they were achieving this and say like, you know, we're on the right track. And it's important to reassure your personnel whenever you're moving into such a transformational change. So performance again, in this case, like why giving bonus, right? Nevertheless, some brands, they kind of did some bonus to these employees whenever it was possible, not on an official or corporate way. Some others that they were delivering good changes, they were seeing their salary raised. So it was not necessarily in form of bonus, but they were recognized with this. And this helped very much to deliver this change. Again, we have now evidence that bonus helps. So it's entirely up to you how you want to take these decisions. But I think we have evidence that good culture works, but also recognition works. And if it's financial, it might work on the short term. But this is what you need on the short term to change this drastically. They consolidate improving, right? Doing additional changes over the goals. And then they adapted the goals based on the resources. And they create new entities like the BP of social impact inside of the Unilever. And whenever bigger change were initiated by this transformation, they were accepting it. They were embracing this change and they're like achieve it through partnerships. How are you going to change your consumer behaviors? You cannot do it by yourself. Therefore, you start to use consumer representatives to see which type of other NGOs can help together. And then you start to work on educational programs, right, to promote this change with your customers. At the end, they have institutional these approaches, right? Thank you to some experts that start coming on and speaking, like monitoring the results, and they just kind of embedded. Now, Unilever is considered like an innovating company because they're always trying to strive for more. So again, these quarter change for models, I think it's a good reference to change. But remember, it's not a formula. It's not because you follow these 80 steps that you're going to deliver change. And not because you don't follow it, that doesn't mean that you're not going to make any change. But whatever it's important is like they reflect very similar imperatives. First of all, you have to give your people the confidence to do that, right? You have to invest in it, create these capabilities. Second point, you have to establish clear metrics from the beginning to understand the actual situation. And therefore, you can set up reasonable goals, right? And you're going to learn from them. Not all of them are going to go good, but you can learn from that. Third thing, always communicate the commitment from the top. If you don't have the legitimacy to communicate these radical changes, they're barely going to work. Fourth thing, start to reinforce and build these organization capacities for change. It's not a transformational change is good, but whenever you set up the structure for this system to go by itself, it's even better. Now, I just be careful because one of the biggest failures that I've seen is like whenever companies want to implement third generation strategies, thanks to second generation staffed people, but led by first generation management. This is a very slow learning curve. And I think this Unilever is a powerful lesson whenever a good strategy works and how it was embedded on its mission by the beginning. So what is the vision for your project? This is what I would like you to work. And again, I'm going to give you some suggestions. The first one, what is this? It's a document that states your current and future objectives. Okay, that was very clear in the case of you. Yes? Second thing, it's a guide that will help the whole organization to take decisions. Also, it can be a roadmap. It doesn't have to be just the goals, but what are you going to do tomorrow? What are you going to do today? What are you going to do next week? What are you going to do in 6 months? Entirely up to you. It can be a roadmap whenever we have a clear time frame, whenever we can move on. So some suggestion, make it clear and easy to understand. It has to be something easy to remember. That's why graphs are very powerful. It has to be specific, but it doesn't have to be limitational. Maybe look into the future, get yourself inspiration by the SDGs. Link your previous values and strongly embedded on the mission of your company. This is a key point. You cannot just reinvent the company. It has to be in something that already existed. And I think a good vision, it has to be in 2 parts. First, the goal, and the second, how these new activities are going to be embedded in the business model as we have seen it. Okay, obviously these are just suggestions for you. Now, the vision statement for your project, we have seen this. You can take advantage of what Compass Vision was doing with the Universal Sustainability Plan. And another suggestion, maybe you start a discussion with your team why or how this vision should not be, right? And this could help. The other one is like, try to define a good slogan. I think the Unilever one, it was very simple and very get to the point. We're gonna do well by doing it. Define priority goals, the 3 ones that they have at the beginning, and then possibly the 7 pillars. A little bit of what we have seen with Unilever. I think it will be very useful for you to work on different goals, on different pillars, and then obviously I'm not going to expect you to deal with the targets, but this is a little bit what I would like you to be for the next hour, okay? Any questions or comments, guys? Okay, now,
sorry?
Yes, please.
In terms of the creativity, I would like to ask about the mission of the company, because some company, they already have stated their mission in the sustainability report.
Good point.
So should we continue with that mission, or we can create another one for the company?
Obviously, you can continue with the ones, but I would like you to create a new one that will have more this sustainable value embedded into this, right? I don't want you to create a radical new one. Use the existing one and propose a new one. I think that's whenever it's going to be interesting for you. Take this risk.
Okay, so in that case, should the final presentation link with the first one of Simone?
Yes, exactly.
Because I mean, we have mentioned the company's mission in the previous presentations already. So if, I mean, the final presentation should have the link between the 2 sections. So I think it could be very difficult to develop a new one then.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It would be difficult to create a new one. So I don't know how specific this mission is. I don't remember. We might discuss it step case by case, but at least I would like you to do something like this if it will be possible, like the one that I have mentioned before. Infographics like this, right? Something that will help us to communicate this vision with the rest of the organization. Obviously, I'm not expecting you to do something similar. I'm just saying, like, based on your creativity, try to set up the vision as you can. And if you have done it with Simone, maybe the graph and the mission statement is good. Now try to put it in something graphical for the rest of the organization be able to remember it. Does that make sense?
Okay, we will try. Thank you.
I know. Yes.
I have a question of this today's requirement. What is link to yesterday requirement of analyze one key materiality issues and put it into 5 stages of SHADEC model?
How is it? That's a very good question, Hue. If your organization, let's say it's very defensive, therefore your mission and your vision cannot be very civil or strategic. Did you see? You need to adapt it. That's exactly what I would like you to do. Think about how open is your organization and how far you can go with this.
So we need to build a vision for the key materiality issue that we choose yesterday.
Exactly. It's like you're going to give a name to your project. You're going to put it at a slogan that is going to be matching how open your organization is. Okay. And therefore you can create the specific goals for your organization on this materiality issue. And therefore you just need to put it in some graphs. I mean, it could be what I will be demanding. It's a lot of discussion and maybe one slide with this.
Okay, so I just have the last questions about the goals of about the goals of the group. Our group will will develop a list of goals for the issue, and I think I want to ask because company actually will have some goals for the issue, and could we use those goals, or we need to develop our new goals, or we can use the goals from company? Are there any proportionate between those two?
That's a good question. If you think the goals are already existing and they're pertinent, and then you can justify, but because of your materiality analysis that they're pertinent, you can use the same. In case that you consider that you need new ones because that materiality issue hasn't been treated, do new ones, please.
Thank you.
Okay. Something else?
Yeah, just a question. So,
yes.
For example, if we are in the strategic stage, we can make a vision to go to the civil stage.
Exactly. If that's exactly, if you're on the strategic one, I would like you to try to go civil. But if you're on the defensive stage, it's really hard for you to go on the civil one, right? Or on the strategic one. It will be very ambitious, and you can, but therefore your implementation plan will be a little bit harder. So yeah, that's the kind of link I would like you to do, to be realistic, but at the same time that you take some risk to make advanced things.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
I have one more questions. If a company have many materiality issue, and some issue is civil or strategic, and some issue is defensive and managerialist, so how should we choose the issue with strategic, or should we choose the issue with defensive?
That's a good point. That's a very good point. I would say choose whatever you can make the most impact. That means take the defensive one and try to move on. So you take, and if you take the one on the bottom, then I think you can bring all the ones on the top.
Because every key materiality issue of a company will have different importance to the stakeholder or to the company, and maybe the defensive issue may not really important, and they don't really want to concentrate on at that time. And it's not so important for stakeholders. So if we choose the defensive one, is this okay? I
would like to look, because I think that's a good question. Here they have three material issues, right? They want to better impact, double the business, and reduce environmental impact. So you can put at least three, and you can call it your strategic sustainability plan, right? So this is type of the thing that you cannot just, you have the opportunity to focus on more than just one material issue. If you want to focus on one, it's fine. You have the possibility, and I think it's going to be easier to match it. But you can at least, at maximum, I would say, put the three of them, the most important ones, and then you can call it like a general sustainability plan with a good slogan, and then you just move on the vision of it. What is the goal that you would like to do? The vision of them, it was clear. We want to double the business at the same time that will reduce environmental impact and increase positive social impact. Did you see? So they have kind of the three material issues at the same time, and they create a goal that is common to them. That's why the strategic plan, it was called the Sustainability Living Plan. Okay, I know that one on the business model is going to be kind of complicated, but at least this one with the vision, I really need you to do it. And if you can establish the three main goals based on the three materiality issues that you have selected, I think we're going to be more than fine for this session.
But if we choose too many issues to develop goals of them, it may be much more. It may need more time and effort than choose just one issue. So I don't know how to choose between.
Let's do it. Let's choose the three. Choose maximum three materiality issues, and that's it.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Professor.
No, thanks to you. Any other questions?
I have a question, sir.
Yes.
I have a question, sir. Are we only for today developing our clear shared vision, or do we have to follow the other stage? Like,
no, just the vision.
Communication.
Just the vision, Antoine. Following the 8 steps is going to be really hard. I just want to give you this as a reference in case that whenever you really want to do an implementation plan, I think it's a very good reference. But by the thing that we're going to do next classes, just develop the vision and try to see how we can communicate it better. And that means if you can do it graphically, that will help a lot. Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, I'm gonna put the presentation on the files on Teams, and then I let you work by Teams, and I will go visit you one by one. Okay, I will start by the end today. So I'll see you in a bit.
Yeah, see you, sir.
Thank
you.
See you.